Welcome to the Keisha Podcast Show. Today's episode is titled, What Defines a Good Relationship? Marriage. This episode is going to be broken down into more than one segment. The first segment, we talked about the bachelorette. Bachelorette looking for the bachelor. Today's episode, we're going to define a good relationship, which will lead to your ultimate goal is marriage. The relationship has four aspects. You have your family relationships, you have your friendships, you have your acquaintance, and then you have your romantic relationships. And I think we're going to focus a little on each one. Your family relationships is those that you have with your family members, your cousins, your aunts, your parents, your siblings. Then you have your friendships, your best friend, people that you're just friends with that you may go places with, but not necessarily define them as a best friend. Then you have your acquaintanceships. That's basically people that you consider an acquaintance. You okay? Y'all all right? You're not necessarily best friends. You're not necessarily defining them as friends, but they're an acquaintance. Then you have your romantic relationships. Your romantic relationship is your significant other, your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your fiance, or someone that you are personally involved with that you define as more on a romantic level, is more than a friendship, and you're more than acquaintance. A quote from John Galsworthy says, "Love has no age, no limits, and no depth." Love has no age, no limit, and no depth. What do you take that quote to mean? Do you take that quote to mean that the same as love has no boundaries? That there is no limitations to what you would do for someone that you love? And no depth mean to death do you part? What do you honestly think he meant by that quote? Maya Angelou quotes, "In all the world there is no heart for me like yours. In all the world there is no love for you like mine." We all have different emphasis when we express love, when we express feelings. When you think about love and you look at your spouse, your husband, your significant other, your partner, what do you feel? What do you think? What is your expression about that person? What do you think about your relationship? Do you think that y'all have a good relationship, that you have good vibes, positive vibes? Is it more of a negative relationship, a lot of arguing, a lot of fussing and fighting and disrespect? Or is it more respectful? Is it more trust, communication? Is it a companionship? Are you companions? Do you have a friendship? Do y'all have a trust? Do y'all trust one another? Do you show love and are you supportive of one another? It says, anyone can give you attention and compliments, but someone who loves you will give you that plus respect, honesty, trust, and loyalty. When you sum it up, I think most will agree that we all just want someone who chooses us. Is that true? Do you think that that's what we all are hoping, desiring, and wanting? Someone who chooses us over anyone else under any circumstances? That's a very hard question, and it's a very challenging question when you really think about that. Because when you start looking at love and relationship and marriage and romance and that aspect, then you're asking a person to put their careers before their marriage. And if you really think about that, if you're asking your spouse to put their career second to their marriage, then think about that. What if that job requires your spouse to be gone at a moment's notice? They have to travel all the time, or they have it's just a very demanding job. And every time that your spouse get ready to leave and you're like, don't forget you have a wife, or don't forget you have a husband, or don't forget, about home and things like that. But when you think about that, when you met that person, what was that person's career at that time? You was probably supportive and understanding, and I got you, and no matter what, I got you, and we're gonna get through this, and I understand. I'm okay with your profession. I'm okay with this job. I'm okay with what you're doing. Because when you think about that, your spouse have to go out and they're trying to provide for the home, provide for the family, taking care of the things that needs to be taken care of. But then at the same time, that career choice, for most, was a choice probably before they got into what? A committed relationship. Or before they decided to marry the person that they fell in love with, because 9 times out of 10, you did what? As a woman, as a man, you said, I accept your career. I accept your goals. I support you. How many of us are guilty of that? I support you no matter what. We're going to get through it no matter what. But then when you're in it, then what's the first thing that happens? You jump up out of bed in the middle of the night because he got to go to work. Or she jumps up in the middle of the night because she has to go to work. What happens? Insecurities. Jealousy. What's the first thing you start thinking? Is he cheating? Is she cheating? Is she really going to work? Is he really going to work? Did he really work late? What's the first thing that happens? You got to go to work again this time of morning? You working again late? We all are guilty. We all are guilty of having that type of approach when it comes to our spouses, when it comes to careers and career choices. In the beginning of the relationship, we all know that it is what? Absolutely wonderful. Wonderful. We in it. We loving it. We're supporting one another 100%. We making time. We doing this. We going places. We hanging out. We getting to know each other. It's perfect. It's just the ideal relationship. Yes, I'm going to marry this man. Yes, I'm going to marry this woman. Your friends are supportive. If your friends are very into knowing exactly what your career is, if it's one of those demanding careers, what about the people that's on front lines? Their careers are very demanding, challenging. Everybody is not on the front line to have a 9-to-5 or a day job or a day schedule. And sometimes even if you have a day schedule, you still may be on call. So for the most part, there is no ending. You're always what? For the most part, you always have to be what? Available at a moment's notice. Whether that's to travel, whether that's to go into your job. And how many spouses is really supportive of that? You ask yourself, when it comes down to honesty and trust and respect and loyalty, Do that really exist in relationships and marriages anymore? When people get married, are we married now for love? Because we really love one another? Or is it always a purpose behind it? A reason other than love? Think about that for a second. You want to marry because of its love. But how many people are married because of opportunity? Opportunity. Would that make you an opportunist? How many people marry for money? Would that make you what? Money hungry? Greed? Gold digger? What? How many people marry because they're lonely? And they'd just rather be with somebody than just be alone? How many people are just vulnerable? Is that how we end up in relationships with the man or the woman? Or it's just a lot of fussing and fighting and we ain't getting along with one another and there's a lot of disrespect going on because we're settling? Because we'd rather put up with it than what? Be alone? Is that how we find ourselves in such relationships? How many couples find themselves, I'm going to ask that again, how many couples find themselves in those situations? Whether it's a marriage, whether it's a relationship. And how many people have been with a person for years, months, years, don't want to start over, don't want to do it again, so they just accept it for what it is. The good, the bad, the not so good, the not so good, the not so good, the not so good. Because they just don't want to do it again. They don't want to go through the trials of dating and getting to know somebody and all that all over again. So they settle and figure, well, you know what, we can work this out, or I could work with what I got. It's better than what? Nothing. How many of us have that approach? How many people out there have that type of attitude? That's their vibe. It's better than starting over. It's better than not being with anyone at all. How many people marry for the wrong reasons? What would you define to be the right reasons? What about a prenup? Do you think prenups matter? Do you think you should be asked to sign a prenup? Would you ask your spouse before you marry to sign a prenup? What if they said no? Would you still marry that person? What if they asked you to sign a prenup? How would you feel? Do we as adults take all these things in consideration when we're dating? Do we have conversations about this when we're dating, when we're getting to know a person? Do we even date anymore? Is that realistic? Or is that just a part of life that we skip? We meet somebody, we exchange telephone numbers, we conversate 1 or 2 times, we may go out to eat, the next thing we moving in together, we in bed together. Is it really just that way now? Or do we honestly still have people out there that take the time and really get to know a person? But then getting to know a person, the courtship, spending time and not rushing into the intimacy, not rushing into living together. Do that really matter? Do those things really change a person? How many times have we taken the time and actually got to know a person? Waited before we became intimate and shared ourselves with that person, only to find ourselves that once we do, we realize that person wasn't nothing but a what? A whore? A cheater, unfaithful, a liar, deceitful. And all that time was what? What you define it as? Wasted time? I say all the time that time is what? Non-refundable. Time is non-refundable. You don't get not 1 second of your time back. I just refuse to allow men to waste what? My time. If you done took a year and a half to get to know somebody, doing it the right way, I guess the way that normally, the way it used to be done, I don't know about now. And then to come to find out that once you decide to be with that person intimately and think y'all done finally made that connection and, you're ready and to find out that that person is nothing but has been a liar, deceitful, dishonest. What would you do? What would you do? Would you still be friends with that person? Would you still be with that person? Would you still consider that person a person that you would want to be with, spend your life with? Would you continue the path with that person? If you waited a year and a half to be intimate with that person, and then the moment that happens, that person turned around and they cheated. They went right back into their same old dirty, filthy ways, and you thought they had changed. What would you do? What would you do? I'm Keisha, and this is the Keisha Podcast Show. Tune in tomorrow for the next episode.